I'll help you go get this rubbing.
All right.
Just let me touch you.
All right.
And I cast invisibility on him.
Oh.
Well, one good turn deserves another.
Oh no.
Wait,
And I cast invisibility on you.
Thus breaking your invisibility.
You're invisible now. We got episode 5 of Exandria Unlimited here. I'm trying to get through this entire series. There's only 8 episodes of this thing. I want to have the full package deal so you guys can see what these breakdowns are like. And at the end of this thing, I'm doing other breakdowns. So leave a comment down below what kind of a gameplay footage you want me to break down. I already got a bunch of different requests for some Dimension 20 stuff. And as y'all know, I love Brennan Lee Mulligan. Previous Critical Role episodes, other live plays I've never seen before. I want to know what you guys want to see. I'm checking all the comments. I got a whole spreadsheet in the works that I want to dive through as soon as this series is done. And I'd love to see what the next episode, season 3 of Critical Role holds. So let me know what you guys think about this. And so far the reception's been awesome and I really appreciate the response. I really absolutely love doing these. So before we get into it, let's send it off to Comfy Coach. Well, hello there. If you didn't know, I have a Patreon that I'm about to overhaul entirely starting next month. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I've posted over on my Patreon. I am changing things up here. The Kickstarter went absolutely extremely well. All the support I've gotten from Patreon, I've been, for the last year and a half, I've been getting feedback of what you guys want to see from the community, from my patrons, from all the Kickstarter responses. I want to change things up in a big way. So next month, I am completely overhauling my Patreon and upgrading it in as big of ways as possible. You will get the most bang for your buck that I could possibly allow as far as supporting what I do here. There's going to be even more rewards, even more content than I've ever done before. I am starting a second channel that's going to have access, the patrons get early access to. I'm doing a lot of gameplay. I started a campaign that I'm going to have a campaign log and diary that I have giving my patrons full access to, my literal DM binder, video breakdowns of the different sessions we're going, how I'm creating the campaign, world building, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be absolutely huge. I'm really excited to do it. I'm doing it on a second channel because a lot of time the algorithm doesn't like certain things that I want to create and do, but you guys said that you want to see it, so I want to give it to you, but not tank the stupid algorithm. So I really appreciate the support of allowing me to be able to do this as I chase after doing this full time. And that's all thanks to you guys and the response from the Kickstarter and all the support I get over on Patreon. So thank you so much. And we'll check it out next month. Back to you. All right, we're going meta with this first one here with Anjali, the new player here, the Feywild, the new monk character that got introduced mid-campaign. Super awesome. But she openly is saying it's meta, and this is a whole interesting situation. Lots of times in the D&D community, we talk about metagaming, and if bad, it's just when it's good, when it's bad, when it's okay, gray areas. That's exactly what I want to talk about here. So let's dive into this situation. I'll give a bunch of different takes on it.
I am debating, but I am not sharing meta. I am debating whether I have to relieve him of said vestige at any given point for his own safety.
So really quick there, her character is looking out for the group. It's very much a protector vibe of the character. Matt Mercer's character has this vestige of divergence, which is this crown that is corrupting. It's the crown of the Spider Queen. It's corrupting anyone who touches it, and it's definitely a very evil object, and she's thinking about taking it away from him. But she's now just said this out to the group, so I don't know.
Can I make a roll to make that decision?
While she ponders this, I am picking my nose.
I was about to go into a point, but Matt just said he's picking his nose. So you literally saw me just got thrown off by that. I want to go back to show Aabria's face real quick whenever she asked for this roll.
Decision.
While she ponders this, I am picking my nose.
Yeah, respect. No.
So Anjali, in a very meta way, is asking the dungeon master, what kind of roll would I make to see if I do that or not, right? So we'll get into some nitty gritty there, but let's let this play out.
Roles are like meta conversation.
Yeah.
Roles are where like a decision and the universe may disagree on a course of action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We don't disagree because you haven't made a choice. Mm-hmm. So do what you think you need to do.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to keep my thoughts on it and wait. Keep
Vibes.
my eyes open. Vibes.
Oh, so interesting. Like this might be the most intricate thing that I've done a breakdown on as far as these series has had. So a player asks the dungeon master for a roll. Okay, that's happened before. The blind buy players have been like, can I make a decision on this? So I think it was a really beautiful description of what Aabria said about rolls, or whenever the universe and the decision are, possibly disagree. So there's some sort of like, I need to interpret, like the roll interprets what happens, right? To see where it goes. And so Aabria basically didn't let her have this roll, right? So again, so many things here as a dungeon master, and by no means am I questioning it like, oh, this is ridiculous, I would have done, like, no, I think it's beautiful, like the respect for like empowering the player. Aabria chose to say no to even allowing her for the role, and it chose to empower her. No, you make that decision, you're that character. I just got chills. Like, that's so empowering to give that to your player, but no, you are in control of your character. What would you do? Like, that's so cool. Myself as a dungeon master, I've had this situation happen many times where a player asks for a certain thing, and I'll be like, I would say this would be a wisdom saving throw or something, or an intelligence check, or whatever, a constitution check if you're trying to do something physically. I don't know. If they want to do something, I'd be like, okay, well, it would be this, but you set the DC. So I'm still empowering the player. I still give them the control over it. But sometimes maybe you don't know. Maybe you don't know what your character would do. I've seen that a totally fine spot to have it come down to a roll. You just set that number. Sometimes maybe it's a 50-50 on the D20. But I think it's really empowering. And again, another thing that I think there's just the times where me and Aabria disagree are these beautiful moments where we can learn from. And that's why I'm doing these. And I'm challenging you guys that are watching this. What would you guys do? What would you have done? What would you maybe learn from doing this? Because I think there's going to be times where now I'm like, no, don't make that roll. What would you do? And really put them on the spot. And I think that was really, really awesome. Now, that's one part of this complex situation. The second part here is the meta level of this. So as a player, you got to choose when to go meta or not. So something like that, keeping close to the vest, like, I don't know if I would have revealed that as a player, of saying like, I want to relieve him of this thing. Now it's really hard for the players to unhear that, right? So let's play this out. Let's imagine this whole thing. So she says, I'm going to steal the vestige from Matt's character, or she's thinking about doing it. Now, when she finally does it, the players are kind of like on edge, and they might feel like, oh, well, I didn't see it coming, but I had to force myself not to act on the information that I know, because if I did that, that would be metagaming. So I can't do that. So I have to not do that. So then you feel kind of helpless, right? So it's a cleaner, more big reveal type of situation. If you don't know that, you're plotting that, you're planning that. Maybe you even tell the dungeon master. I've had the times where a player is about to do something like this. I'm like, just text it to me, right? Or talk to me during break if it's nothing that's pressing right now. Talk to me in between sessions, so that these moments can be preserved and not maybe spoiled. Again, I haven't seen episode 6. Episode 5 just came out. I haven't seen episode 6 yet, so I don't know if she does, or if she's successful with this thing or not. But if she hadn't have said this, and that was something she was planning and plotting, and then she does that, everyone's gonna be like, whoa, what? Like, and it's gonna be a bigger moment. So that's the times where meta can kind of, now I think she's having a good conversation, like we just talked about the roles and if you make them or not. But that meta conversation, sometimes you want to keep a little closer to the chest for these big reveals you can do. But there's a lot of big breakdown stuff there. So really, really, this is the most complex scenario that I've had on these little breakdowns. So comment down below what you would have done or how you handle these meta situations. But I think there's a lot of really cool stuff to learn from us all. Next one. Next up, we're talking about alignment now, and Aabria does something really cool with alignment. I could do a whole rant video that I have not done yet on alignment in Dungeons and Dragons, but let's see how she handles this alignment. What just happened was Dorian is having this like nightmare type vision situation and is talking with the Spider Queen, and he makes a deal with her, like a pretty like dark deal with the devil, if you want to call it that, about getting the crown and giving it to Pot and like to save his friends and other stuff. So causing some bad stuff, doing something bad for their friends. Very much not a good alignment type of thing stereotypically, but let's see this whole point I'm going to highlight here.
Dorian, your alignment is what?
I know. Chaotic good.
It is now chaotic neutral.
Yeah. Ooh. Okay.
Ooh, So she switched his alignment mid-campaign. Let's go. I love it. I love it. I'll sign off on it. I have done this before myself as well. I run D&D for high school campaigns. I'm a high school teacher, and I've had players play their characters in certain ways, and it's almost like a little introspective reality check on themselves to self-reflect of like, these people were saying that they were neutral or good. I'm like, switch your alignment to evil. Like, you're like being murder hobos or doing things that are like, wow, like y'all are being just straight up evil. Like, and it gives them a little reality check to be like, oh, whoa. Yeah, I am. And then, you know, there's some moral teaching lessons there whenever I'm dungeon mastering to high school kids. But back to Exandria Unlimited is he made a very not good alignment type of move. So she calls him out on it and makes him change it on his character sheet. Because I feel like one of the biggest problems I have with alignment is that it's not set in stone. Your character's alignment is not going to be the same exact thing as it was at the beginning of the campaign to the end. It's going to be it's going to be changing and evolving and adapting to whatever they're going through, right? So just this right here shows me that Aabria kind of is on the same page as me in a lot of ways of she's changing his alignment, and she's told him like, your alignment's changed. She didn't say like, what do you think it would, like, Aabria is very open, very like relaxed dungeon master, very accommodating to the players, but this is her saying like, change your alignment, you know, like, and he's like, yeah, cool. And I thought it was a really cool moment, and it just transcended the game a little bit in a meta type way. You're changing something on your character sheet. It's not something that's actually, well, it's based off of something that happened in the game. But I thought this was a really cool moment to kind of highlight the type of way you can implement alignment in your game and not have it be this thing where like, oh, sorry, I can't do this because I'm good or because I'm, you know what I mean? So want to highlight it. This right here is my favorite part of this whole episode and this whole breakdown is the double invisibility cast that I showed at the very beginning of this thing. What's about to happen is they have this whole battle map set up right here, as you can see, that the players are all here. They have to get to this little obelisk type of with runes and sigils on it. They have to go to it, but they have to navigate through this plant forest type situation. And they're gonna like they want to stealth in there, right? So I'll let you see.
Just let me touch you.
All right.
And I cast invisibility on him.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
So I want you to watch this. Robbie's about to also cast invisibility back on him as a friendly player that Robbie is. Liam sees this happening. He goes, oh no, you'll hear him say this. I think Ashley catches on to it too, and then Aabria instantly throws him under the bus. Because if you use an action to cast a spell, it breaks invisibility. This is not greater invisibility, so here we go.
All right.
Well, one good turn deserves another.
Oh no.
Wait,
And I cast invisibility on you.
Thus breaking your invisibility.
You're invisible now.
and I just look down and
Sorry, I didn't know
shake
that's
my-
a word.
You have the spell, right?
Fuck.
You are responsible for that information, my dude.
God damn it.
Yes. Please, we gotta replay that back.
You have the spell, right?
Fuck.
You are responsible for that information, my dude.
God damn it. All right.
Okay, look. So much here. First of all, it's hilarious, but there's actually more going on here than what you might just look at and laugh at. First of all, obviously the better scenario would be cast invisibility on yourself and you cast invisibility on yourself. Now we're both invisible. But Dorian playing the character that he is, this very like team collaborative type dude that he is, he casts it right back on him. The D&D bromance invisibilitying each other, but casting that breaks the spell. Here's where it gets into the interesting part. She could have stopped him, or other players could have stopped him. Like, no, wait, or whatever. And she goes, and you break invisibility on yourself. And she's like, you have that spell, right? Here's where it gets really cool. I think Aabria's holding his foot to the fire here, and I think she's being a lot more strict on this because he has the spell. He's not just doing something on accident and he doesn't have the invisibility spell and he therefore doesn't know about it. It's like whenever you're a player at the table, you're not going to know how every single other player at the table's spells work. That's not your job description. The Dungeon Master, even the Dungeon Master is not necessarily responsible for that. Like, all right, what does that spell do? That happens all the time. Look it up, right? But the player, I feel, is definitely responsible for understanding how their spell works. It speeds up the game. It stops from little clunky situations happening. So you should know your spells. And Robbie has the invisibility spell. And Matt has the invisibility spell. They should both know how it works. Matt cast his just fine. He was going to let Dorian go in there. Dorian, understandable new player move, did not know how invisibility works and cast it back on him, thus breaking the spell. And Aabria holds him to it. She's like, no, you got to know how your spells work. Like, dang, like that's so cool, because normally if she has, for the last 4 episodes, she's been very open and relaxed about how certain spells are ran and how other things go, and giving people advantage and letting them work together. If you could explain away, then sure, like been super chill with all this stuff, but she's really choosing to really stick this down, and I respect the heck out of it. Like, it's awesome to see. Like, no, you gotta know your stuff. Like, all you have to do as a player is know how your character works. I have an entire world to deal with. Like, I got a whole bunch of, you got to know your character and their spells and stuff. And she holds his feet to the fire. Let's watch how the rest of this thing plays out, though.
Oh my god. That's
So I'm no longer.
You're not invisible because
Hand me the stuff. Hand me the
It's the
stuff.
first time I've ever done that, Dariax.
Me too.
All right. Do you think you are capable
Oh, totally.
of writing down these letters?
Probably.
oh god.
All right. Opal.
So now they just go right into it. They continue right into it. Robbie doesn't throw some fit like, oh no, come on. Like, okay, then let's go back. I won't cast invisibility. Then I'll, and like go back and like retcon it or save the spell slot or like whatever, right? They just roll with it, because you gotta own up. In the same way that Aabria is holding him responsible for his actions, you as a player have got to hold yourself responsible for your actions. Know your stuff better. And Robbie takes it and runs with it. Absolutely love his response to it. And he messed up and moved on. Nobody's dwelling on it. And then everything that transpires with Matt's character, it would have never happened if Robbie hadn't have done that. So really awesome on all 3 parts here to show what could happen and how to hold players accountable and hold yourself accountable to know your character. This next part gets crazy here. They are fighting an alligator situation here. Huge like Feywild crocodile situation in the middle of the same forest little battle map that they are in. Combat just broke out with everything, and now it's about to be Opal's turn, and they were fighting this alligator, crocodile, whatever, and yeah, I'll let you see it.
That's you, Opal. You're up.
Okay, I'm gonna scream at everyone. Get it on its back! I know what to do with crocodiles. They can't turn over. And then
Hold on. Roll a deception check on me. Is that true?
that's true. I'm from Florida. I know these things. That is a, what'd you say? Deception. That's a 13.
I don't believe you, but we'll see how it goes.
Google it.
Tight.
Okay, so this is crazy. Okay, so first of all, in general, if a player does this, yeah, we're gonna go. We have the theme of metagaming going on here. I don't know if Opal's character would know that about alligators and have been as well about that. And now this is, again, I'm trying to have this open conversation. I'm not scolding Amy for like, oh, you acted on. She's a brand new player. She knows the thing about alligators. She had this really cool idea that ends up being absolutely crazy moment at the table. We'll get into all of that. I am purposely in these videos, again, hopefully and eventually I won't have to do disclaimers like this to show that I'm not trying to break it down like this. I'm trying to lift up these moments and highlight the things that we can kind of really break down here, because I don't know if Opal's character would know this about alligators, right? And in the same way, I don't know if this alligator should just have, it's a Feywild alligator, first of all, and that's not necessarily how it would work. Aabria is completely in full power right now of being able to say like, okay, not this alligator. No, like that's not going to be a thing. And again, this also opens up the time of like when you run it strict and say no, or when you open yourself up to being like, okay, cool. Because I don't know if initially, if I put myself in Aabria's shoes, I don't know if I would have been like, okay, yeah, that's how this works. Because an alligator is very much smaller than what this gigantic one is. And they actually get into it as well about how Matt says that they look it up, they Google the dang thing, and they found out, yeah, if it's on its back for like 30 seconds or something, it'll actually get more docile. And Matt's like, okay, so we could have to hold this thing down for like 4 to 6 rounds for it to cause this effect. And it's going to be kind of constantly thrashing around. It's not going to happen, right? So it would be completely within Aabria's power to be like, no, like that's not like this is too big of a creature. It's Feywild crocodile. That's not one of the mechanics that this has based on some real life thing that you know and that you're applying to this game. She could completely shoot that down. She doesn't, and runs with it and open in the same way she just was very strict on Robbie. She's opening up, but that's the cool thing of trying to find your own times of what are you as a dungeon master going to be strict on and not strict on, right? There's not a correct answer to this. There's going to be so many different opportunities for certain ones of us are going to like to keep it tight on these certain situations or open it up because, man, there's some really cool things going on here. So to go into the rest of this thing with this whole alligator rollover situation, and then I'll show what actually happened at the end, is for this alligator, I would have it be in this middle gray area thing. We just talked about how, ooh, no, you say no, and then you just keep playing the game as normal and you shoot down the player's idea. That's one end of the spectrum. And on the other end of the spectrum, you completely buy into it and go with it, and then that's kind of where Aabria goes. But here's another gray area situation. What if you completely change the mechanics on the fly, and that becomes now the challenge of this alligator? And you're like, you know what? Let's go. In order for y'all to do this, y'all are going to have to get this thing on its back. In order to do that, y'all are going to have to come together. There's going to have to be, and kind of maybe set the stage with some sort of mechanics here that they have to work together now to flip this alligator over. And this combat transcends from a combat versus one creature, because ultimately also, I'm pretty sure the alligator only made one attack. And they didn't have any legendary actions, didn't have any other things going on, which also, side note, I'm about to release next month my Apex monsters, my dynamic creatures, DC dynamic creatures system, along with Apex monsters, of how this problem would be instantly solved and this alligator fight can be taken to a whole nother level apart from everything we're talking about, is letting the alligator go multiple times, giving single creatures like this legendary actions, giving them Apex actions, which is something I'm inspired by Matt Colville's villain actions. I have whole videos on all of that. But for this alligator, turn this into, instead of just hacking through its health, you got to get it on its back. And maybe you start to describe this alligator's health is so much, its strength is so much, you're going to have to get the thing on its back. That's the only way that you can do this now, and really lean into this mechanic. Don't let it be one single check where they make it and then it flips over. Make it into this almost like this thing that they have to come together and do. That could be a really cool thing to take this alligator fight in another direction. Before I show you the end of this alligator wrestle rodeo situation, Robbie has an interesting moment with his character where his first turn, again, Matt's character is invisible because Robbie cast invisibility on him. He has a misunderstanding of how invisibility works, and at the very beginning of his turn, he drops invisibility off of Matt, which is tactically not a good decision. There's no reason to drop invisibility spell, especially because he's not about to cast a spell that requires concentration. So his turn basically is he drops invisibility and walks up and attacks twice. So there's no reason to drop invisibility. Aabria lets it go. She keeps describing, he keeps going. She lets him go through his entire turn because she doesn't know if he has something planned or is going to cast this spell that requires concentration, which is why he dropped it off of Matt's character. Nobody says anything. Everybody lets him do his character. I think there's something to be said there. Let people play, let people do their stuff. But at the end here, a dungeon master reaching their hand out to teach and intervene on a new player does this.
I will let you know though, like you didn't cast another spell, so you didn't have to drop invisibility unless you wanted to.
I thought when I took the... Oh, so even if I take an action, it does that as a break?
It's if the person that it's cast on.
Right. As long as your concentration remains until you cast another spell that requires concentration, or you take enough damage to drop it.
Yeah.
So...
I think the confusion that Robbie had that nobody completely tacked on and addressed here, this is me entering teacher mode here, is just earlier he did something while invisible and it dropped the spell. So he dropped the spell because he was about to do actions, thinking that actions in general just drop invisibility. But no. It's the effect of the invisibility. If you are the person, you can't do an action or else it gets dropped. Instead of him thinking about that for Dariak, or for Matt's character. Anyway, really great moment here to reach out and be like, oh, okay, cool. But real quick, let's see some little resolving things here before I move on.
Take enough damage to drop it.
Yeah.
So.
So I just
you
want to put
dropped
that
it.
on the table. Like, if you want to, keep
You're
it
out,
up. You
you're
can.
out here on these streets. Sorry,
Yeah.
buddy.
No, I
On
get
the
it.
streets.
Totally. Let's do
I fucked
it.
this up from the beginning. I'm gonna keep on fucking it.
Hooray!
Okay.
Hooray! Done. And again, Robbie taking it and running with it. He messed up the invisibility before, and now he had another moment with it. So it's totally fine. It's no big deal. I'm sure Matt's character would have done some sort of action anyway, and it would have dropped anyway. So it's totally fine. Probably not that big of a deal. Robbie just runs with it because that's what he did, and he lets his actions happen, and everything happens. Just keep on rolling with it. Love it. And now for the alligator rodeo finale here. You got the alligator down here. You have Opal's character on top of the alligator. She has this whole thing going where she has got in a some sort of rope situation around it to where she can have some leverage around to take the thing down. She describes she's going to jump off at the side of it and roll it over with her. She's going all in on this thing. She, at her turn, has been sprinting forward, misty stepping onto the alligator to do this thing. It's a big move. It's a big, huge move. It's absolutely crazy. As I referenced earlier, though, this is a decision as a dungeon master. You either say no and shoot the player down on one end. You let a player go crazy, which is what's about to happen, or that middle area of, I feel like this big, huge alligator, it would be more respectful of this big, huge alligator, or this thing would be a bigger issue, a bigger problem, like I already talked about with the whole Apex things, giving it more things to be more deadly and dangerous, because right now it's just getting completely destroyed, which happens. But I'm also saying these points for Dungeon Master, I see all the time, like, oh, my monsters just keep getting destroyed, or oh no, and all this type of stuff. That's why I want to highlight in these moments. Not saying that they did anything wrong, but saying how different things can play out and where you can make little tweaks or changes to avoid if this is not the scenario you want to happen. But my God, is an epic moment about to happen with Amy's character. But let's see how everything goes.
I mean, I am so deeply invested on if the dice want this to happen. So please make an athletic check.
Come on, baby. Come on, mama.
The gator.
Come on.
Don't embarrass me. Oh, what would you say? Athletics?
Yeah.
19. No, sorry, 17. That's a -1. 17.
Another natural one.
No!
And that was literally the scenario you needed. Yes. Oh, but please describe how you flip the gator.
Okay, so Opal has never believed in anything.
So, she wrangle flips this alligator. I'll show that clip here in a second, but a athletics check. Now, again, Aabria said she's super invested in if the dice want this to happen or not, so she had to be a contest. Another thing you can do, Dungeon Masters, if you don't want to have this happen, interjecting little things here, is have it be a DC, right? I think too many times you're like, oh, it's a grapple checks or an athletics contest, so here we go. But this isn't a grapple check. This is a wrestle, wrangle, flip over check, right? Which I totally see an athletics contest being a thing here. But if you don't think it would be realistic to have this thing happen and have the scenario of rolling a nat 1 or rolling really low and having a player roll really high for this thing to happen, if you don't want it to be that easy, then don't have it be a contest. You can have it be a DC, a certain number that's set of little tiny Opal trying to do this thing. Set a DC of like 20 on this thing. Like, all right, if you roll over a 20, and now at least they have to set the bar. So if it does happen, the dice can tell the story in this way, where there's only one variable, one person's dice that has to be a 20, right? It takes out the variable of possibly rolling low for this alligator, which there you go, it had the nat 1 rolled for it. But again, I, as a total side note to all of this, as the overall big tip, I could do a whole video on this tip right here, is that's a choice on you. Is if you want things to be a certain, whether it's a stealth check, whether it's a perception check, if you want to have checks be made against a DC to prevent from this thing happening, then do that. I have DCs I set all the time for certain stealth checks that need to be made, or all this stuff that happens all the time in D&D. But in this situation, you could have it be a stealth, you could have it be a set DC, or if you want to let the dice tell the story, like Aabria went for, then by all means have it be a contest, and then that nat 1 hits, and oh my gosh, right? But in some ways, I will say this is the final overall thought here, in some ways there is a little bit too, like, she has to hit a 20, you know what I mean? Like an alligator rolling a 1, just to me doesn't feel as satisfying as a player succeeding on some super high bar that was set, right? So I think there might have been more of a buy-in or a crazy, oh my gosh, if she hit over a 20 on this check for the alligator, right? But also getting the big picture of this middle ground that I referenced earlier, maybe she gets it into a weak spot and now one more check, almost like a little mini skill challenge. Somebody else now has to jump in. Opal started it, and now they can come together as a team and have multiple. If you get three over 20 athletics checks on this alligator, it flips over, and that's all they need to win. And the entire fight now becomes that. How cool is that? That I just had this moment just now talking in this little rant thing is, what if the fight changes into that moment? As soon as Opal gets on there, if you make 2 more athletics checks over 20, then it's over, right? And it's almost an alternative win condition that's introduced now. Sure, you could hack through this thing's health and and you could win that way, or you could jump in on what Opal's doing. And now they have a choice of like, all right, wait, do I deal damage and stuff, or do I help out in this way? It's a really cool thing that even just now I'm gonna have alternate objectives maybe to end, and I already have a whole video on alternate objectives, but having different ways that you can end combat, even if it's a hostily wrestling somebody down, ways to resolve combat. So here's the description to finish off this alligator rodeo.
And then so she's gonna just jump, and like the most serious face you have ever seen on Opal, she's just gonna jump like, what is that, 10 feet? I don't know. And land spectacularly on her feet while our croc just flips over with a thunk and its legs go like this.
Oh my god.
And that's it.
I hate this so much.
And she just stands there victoriously. Like, I've seen this happen.
And under
Watch.
the vines that you've entangled, you just see this thing does like a tiny little, like, crocodiles and alligators are known for their like death roll, but you did it to the
So she had this moment where she's like, oh my gosh. And how good does that feel at the table? Does it feel like that was worth it? Does it feel like that was enough of a thing to overcome for this alligator to literally get flipped over on its back? I don't know. Leave me comments on how you would have handled this alligator situation, or if players trying to really go for these big things, and how much slack you give them and stuff to be able to do, and how much wiggle room you give them. But Aabria does have a really cool wrap up she does of a way that she takes this and explains how this was even possible, because I feel like she even herself felt like, I don't know if that was if she truly earned it, right? An alligator rolled really bad, and then this whole thing happened, and the fight's like pretty much won at that point. Here's what her description is.
Dariacs are just staring down the barrel of this massive beast that's flipped right in front of you. But the rest of you see as Opal jumps off, something happens, like your vision blurs for a second and you're not quite looking at Opal. It's her, but it's also another version of her with darker hair and like a wider set and muscles that are straining with the effort of rolling her.
The spirit of her
Rolling
sister.
This big stupid crocodile. And as Opal hits and rights herself, you see like the two images sort of shudder over each other, and it resolves back up to just Opal in front of you. You didn't notice it because you're busy.
I think that was a beautiful description of what this impossible scenario happens. Opal is a Hexblade warlock, and her patron is her own sister. I feel like that hasn't been completely filled out, but her sister is like her sister's spirit is inside of her, and she can talk to her sister in her own head. And this beautiful description of like she was able to do this because of her sister, and I just got chills again a little bit. Like she was not. There's no way she could have done this herself, but her sister helped her in this moment. And like the two versions of that, like you see the two images and then they come back together as one at the end. That is a beautiful picture to paint, and that feels real good for how this whole thing happened, right? So I think that was a great not save, but I think that was a great description to make it feel better as far as what happened and how this whole thing was possible, and gives further. I mean, just look how excited Amy is. That was great moments to give players to the table. Love it. Last part for the alligator here. I gotta show how the whole thing ended. Right after Opal's turn, Robbie goes and tries to describe him wrangling this flipped over alligator with some rope and closing its mouth. You know how you can do with alligators, and then wrapping his jaws shut. And she asks him for this.
All right, you have to be a 14.
We'll see. That would be a natural 20.
My merciful warriors!
I'm not gonna keep fighting. The encounter's over. We're done here. What do I do to that? Wait, yeah.
What do you do? Sometimes you gotta know when to just fold it and just call it a day, because that would have been a dragged out fight of some alligator that's restrained and they eventually hack it down. No, end it, let it be. It's over, right? Like I said, like you can have an alternate win condition of flipping the thing over, and now it's won. The combat is lifted, right? You've beat the creature. This goes one step farther. Robbie gets a natural 20 on it, and she's like, okay, now I'm done, right? Lots of different ways that this could have played out, but it's super cool to see how this whole thing happened and all the different just thoughts that ran through my head with this whole scenario. Love it. Now we got some spicy, almost PvP action, some really tense moment at the table that's rare to see in these live plays, but I really want to highlight this because this can happen, and it's really like the tension at the table is the highest I've ever seen it. So what's happening is Robbie just has the crown, the vestige of divergence, this heavily evilly powerful magic item, vestige of divergence, artifact level crazy power, super evil item. He has it now, Robbie's character, and Liam is not having it. Let's see what happens.
Pretty cool.
I'm just casually packing the crown into my own pack and cinching it up without really saying anything.
You don't really want to carry that.
It was my decision to keep it, and
Yeah.
you supported me. We can't have Dariax bear the load the entire time.
Yes, it was your decision.
It was our decision. We make decisions together. We're a group. The 5 of us are a group. The 5 of us are a group.
If you don't hand that back to the dwarf, we're gonna have a problem.
Look at Aabria.
Sure.
Am I missing something, Oren?
Make a charisma saving throw for me, Dorian.
Ooh, so right here, there's a lot of, like, she goes through talks about the charisma saving throw. I think is interesting. I would have to talk to Aabria as far as what the charisma saving throw is for, but it's like him feeling a certain emotion from Liam, but then it was a saving throw. So not 100% sure on that, but it's just kind of flavoring the situation. And I honestly feel like it was Aabria interjecting into this very tense moment to kind of give some more time for people to think about some stuff, how to disengage the situation, maybe let the players kind of have a moment to kind of breathe in this high tension moment. So that's probably why I think she asked for a check out of nowhere, but let's keep going.
Charisma?
You feel a like reflexive rush of defensiveness at Orm's words. And your cheeks get a little warm and you get a little hot, but you are aware of that feeling.
Which this is interesting because Aabria just earlier told one of the players that no, you're not able to roll. It's on you. You role play this thing. What would you do? Not asking for rolls. But now in this situation, she's asking for this charisma saving throw, and her interpretation of trying to get to the thoughts and feelings, I think, is where the charisma part of that came in, and then tells him kind of some stuff that he's feeling emotionally and stuff. So I think that's important. I'm not saying she's contradicting herself, because by all means, I've said in the same video, there's times where I have done opposite things, right? But I think it's, again, what I was just saying, she's interjecting here to try and maybe diffuse the situation a little bit with this high stakes between the two of them. Instead of not saying anything and just letting it play out, she's interjecting her voice in there, giving a little bit of calm exposition of stuff, and then letting him kind of go back into it, giving a little breaks into all this tension.
Sounds like a threat, Orm.
That's what it was.
Wait. Orem?
We gotta rely on each other out here.
Look at Amy.
And after the last several days, I'm not gonna feel comfortable doing that with you carrying it.
Well, that hurts my feelings.
I'm sorry.
Fine. I care about you more than this. It does not bother me. To hold it or not hold it. Fine. We can make issues of all sorts of things, can't we? You know what we could do right now? We could put it in the box and send it back. But we can't, can we? And I'll take it out and I'll throw it back to Darian.
Woo! So there is that high tension moment. I think props to Liam for playing that in a very true to character. I don't feel like we should do this. This is I'm sorry, but this is like he was firm, but like empathetic with it, and then just let the silence linger. Aabria also did a great job of not interjecting. I think the initial rise of tension, getting in there and letting the kind of interjecting for a second, and then letting it come back. She did great at letting that play out, letting that silence hit. And then Robbie said something else. Like, I think that was a really, really cool moment. There's your big breakdown of all the different stuff we have in these videos. Every single one of these, there's something different that comes out. I'm not going to be repeating myself in the same things. I gloss over stuff if there's similar things that happen. There's also things that I've left out because sometimes a certain section would be an entire chunk. Like there's inspiration, how Aabria Iyengar runs inspiration. I would love to do a whole thing on that. So if y'all want specific things or things that I missed out on that you'd want to see some thoughts on, let me know down below. So stay tuned for more breakdowns and stay tuned for more of this Patreon update overhaul stuff. If you're watching this in the future, it's already happening right now, but I am completely redoing it. Every single month I give homebrew resources for Dungeon Masters, ranging from everything from magic items, monsters, homebrew rules, NPCs, entire city states, different types of stuff to be able to implement in any of your games right now. These DC playbooks are for anybody to be able to plug into any campaign. You'll be able to find something from there to try and make your life easier for having to come up with magic items to give your players or come up with different things to be able to throw at them. So I really hope that you like what I have in store for you. And until next time, stay creative, think outside the box. Peace.